Have a little look at how we create our zipper pocket within the lining. So I've got one of my lining panels, I have my zipper pocket facing panel, I have two zipper pocket lining panels and a number 3 zipper in appropriate colour. My zipper is considerably longer than I need. I always buy these longer than I need them because I find it's just easier to do with a longer zipper. However, so I've already done my interfacing, and my zipper pocket facing is interfaced with a non-woven interfacing. Using a non-woven interfacing gives me a much crisper pocket aperture, and I much prefer it. One of my lovely testers suggested a long time ago that I try it with non-woven, and I have done it with non-woven ever since. So, you know, there's always something new to learn, and that's something I learned and something I love, so that's what I do. So what have we done? We've made a line centrally right the way along from one short end to the other. Then I've done another line either side by 1/8 of an inch above, 1/8 of an inch below. And then I've marked a line that's 3/4 inch in from the short end. And I've added this triangle. And that triangle is about, I guess, about 3/4 of an inch from the point to the bottom corners. And I've done that on both ends, and now I've got an obvious rectangle with these two triangles in the middle. So that's how I've marked up my zipper facing panel. Now I'm just going to take my lining panel, and again with the lining panels I've also marked on the top because they are slightly shaped, so if you don't mark on the top you could end up with them upside down, which is a bit of a disaster. So I'm just going to fold this in half to get the centre mark. I'm going to do the same with my zipper facing panel, so folding the two short ends together just to get my centre mark. And I appear to have left my ruler on the table. Here we go. So I'm going to lay my zipper facing panel right sides together with my lining panel towards the top edge, 1/2 inch, so that the top edge of the facing panel sits 1/2 inch away from the top edge of the lining. And make sure that the centre of your facing panel matches the fold that you've made centrally on your lining panel. Job sorted. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch along the outside edges of the rectangle that I created. I'm going to start on the very corner by dropping my needle in right on the corner. And I'm just going to do a couple of stitches forward and backwards just to secure my stitching at the end there. I'm going to go all the way along . Make sure of is that you don't overshoot the end of your rectangle, and you need to make sure that you start right on those corners just so that you get a perfect rectangle once you've done your stitching. So I like to lift my foot up and drop my foot in so that I drop my needle in so that I know that my needle's dropping right into that corner. And I know it sounds like I'm being picky, but actually I've said this before and I'll keep saying it. The inside of your bag is something that people tend to forget. You make the outside think, whoa, fabulous. And we don't take, I think a lot of us, enough trouble on the inside of our bag. And I do think that as a bag user, that's the bit I see most of. I open my bag, I look into my bag. So actually, you know, taking a little bit of time and effort to make the inside of your bag perfectly beautiful as well is important. So I've done my lines of stitching on both sides, and I'm now going to fold that kind of in half and just use my scissors to make a small cut on that sort of central line. We're going to go down the centre line, and when we get to that triangle we're going to go out towards the corner of our rectangle, being really careful not to trim into your stitching. can see there we have that central cut, and just on the ends there, you can see where my finger's poking through, we just have those little triangles cut out. I'm just going to grab my pressing mat, which is all covered in bits of thread. These things grab threads like nobody's business. Okay, so I'm just going to run my iron over the whole thing just for a second, just to make sure it's all nicely pressed in place. And then I'm going to get my finger underneath the side of this facing panel, and I'm just going to finger press it initially. You can take your iron to it if you want to. I find it's, because this is quite a stiff non-woven interfacing, that actually it's quite papery, and thus if I do that it kind of folds quite easily. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the ends of that facing panel and I'm going to pull them through to the back of my lining panel. And if you give them a little tug, you'll find that the rest of that facing just kind of goes through too. You do need, it's a practice thing, you do need an extra pair of hands sometimes. You should be able to roll the facing and your lining between your fingers so that the facing panel ends up fully behind the lining, so you can't actually see the facing panel from the front. I have seen people say, oh, let's just leave a little bit of the facing showing, and it creates a sort of an accent, which it does, but it tends to pucker up in the corners. So the point of a facing panel is that it's behind, and it gives whatever it is you're using it for more structure. Those of you that are dressmakers or what have you, you'll perhaps use a facing panel on the top of a collar or something like that. So, and it's just to give that bit more structure, so that you don't have a raw edge showing. So I'm just pushing that through and doing one side at a time, rolling between my front finger and thumb, just to make sure that the facing panel is caught on the rear. And what you end up with is a nice rectangular aperture for your zipper to go in. It shouldn't have any puckers in the corner. And that's the reason we don't do the stitching down the side of the short ends of the rectangle when we're sewing our facing panel on, because if we do, then we often get puckers in the corners. What you end up with is a nice clean rectangular aperture. On the back you have the facing panel pulled to the back, and you do sometimes, as you can see there, you get a couple of puckers, but that's fine because they're on the back. Nobody's going to see those. That's not a problem. So I'm going to pop that out of the way for a second, because the next piece we're going to do is we're going to add our zipper to our zipper pocket lining panel. So we'll start with one zipper pocket lining panel, and I'm going to take my zipper, I'm going to lay my zipper right side up so the zipper pull is facing upwards. Now you can see obviously my zipper is considerably longer than my, let's just get rid of the ironing pad, considerably longer than my zipper, my pocket, and that's fine. It actually means I don't have to worry about that zipper pull getting in the way. And you can either clip it or pin it, or just do what I do and don't do either and just kind of hold it in place. What I will say is don't stretch it, don't overstretch it. Always press your zipper before you even start, so that you know that it's all nice and smooth and flat, especially if you're a person that keeps your zippers rolled up in a bag, in a drawer or whatever. So I'm going to stitch this on to my zipper panel, my pocket lining panel, using a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance. So my pocket panel is right side up, my zipper is right side up. This might not seem intuitive if you've never done it before. I promise you it works. So there we have one zipper attached to the lining panel. I'm going to take my second lining panel, laying it right side up on the table. With the first one, I'm just going to pull that zipper out from underneath where it is on the lining panel. And I'm going to lay the edge of my zipper up against the second lining panel. Now, the bottoms of the panels won't match, but I can make sure that the sides match. So two sides of the two panels will match up. This one's longer than the other at the bottom, and that's fine. That's how it will be. That's how it should be. Again, clip or pin your zipper in place, or like me, just hold it and go for it, which is this is just experience more than anything else. I don't use pins and I don't use clips if I don't need to. There are occasions where you really do need to. And there are occasions where once you get used to doing it or get used to a technique, you don't need to. I know a lot of people that can only do a zipper pocket using double-sided tape, and I don't like double-sided tape for doing this either. So it's kind of a personal preference thing. For me, it's about speed. I don't like doing anything that takes more time than it needs to. So there we go. We've got our zipper now sitting between the two panels. I'm just going to, clearly didn't iron that one very well because it looks a bit bobbly and wrinkly. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of extra love and attention. And I'm just going to open up that zipper seam allowance on both sides and press it open. You can iron a zipper like this without any problem at all. Obviously, if you keep your iron on it for any length of time, long time, it's going to melt because it is nylon. But, you know, to just do that, absolutely fine. If you're using a metal zipper, please beware, because metal zippers get hot quickly. 3rd-degree burns with a zipper style that don't look attractive. So we now have our zipper between our two lining panels. I'm just going to open up my zipper because you can see my zipper pull is outside of my zipper linings. So I'm going to put my zipper pull in the middle, and I'm just going to stitch across here just to make sure that my zipper tape stays together. It's just a couple of stitches and it's done within the seam allowance, so it's not a big drama. You can see I've just literally, if I just put my fingers through, you can see that the end there stays together. It's just so we can keep our zipper pull kind of out of the way. So I'm now going to position my pocket so that my zipper, my closed zipper, will close to the left-hand side, because I'm right-handed and that's how I want to orientate my zipper. If you're left-handed, you'll want to do it the other way around so that the zipper closes towards your right hand. I'm going to take my lining panel with the aperture that I made, and I am going to lay it over the top of that zipper. Now you can take your time getting that nice and even, and it's central. You know you're central because you've got about the same amount on either side here. The lining will be sticking out the top of the pocket lining will be sticking out the top of your lining panel. That's normal. Now you can use a bit of double-sided tape, you can pop a couple of pins in, you can use a little bit of glue, sort of fabric glue or anything like that, to hold that in place if you feel you need it. You may not. Some people just don't, and I'm one of those. I don't tend to use, let me just see if I can find my zipper foot. I tend to use it if I don't need it. And in this instance, I don't think I need it. I'm pretty sure I put my foot back in here. Yes, I did. It's not where they live, but that's where they end up. So pop your zipper foot onto your machine. Make sure you've got long threads on the top and the bottom, because again, we're going to bury our threads. It's not just on faux leather that I bury threads, it's all over the place. So what you need to do is make sure that your zipper teeth are sitting centrally within that aperture before you either pin or clip, or however you like to secure it, if you secure it at all. I don't, and as you can see, I'm not going to. And I'm just going to top stitch right the way around. The reason that I don't actually secure it is because it means I do have, there's a bit of plastic in there. I do have the option to kind of give it a little move if I need to as I'm stitching. So I'm just going to start my stitching at one end. I'm going to go nice and slowly around the zipper aperture. If something's not right there, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know what's not right, but something's not right. Didn't sound right, was pulling. So I'm just going to stop. I'm going to just pull out that stitching, the couple of stitches that I've done, and have a little look and see what's gone wrong with the machine. Probably something's not. Okay, a bit of thread down there, that probably caused that. You should be able to, if you know your machine well enough, hear when something's not going right. And that didn't sound right, it just sounded dodgy. I've got all these bits of thread. Why have I got so much thread hanging out? Let's get rid of that. Just didn't sound right. So if it doesn't sound right, chances are it isn't. So let's try that again. That's much better. You see, this stuff happens to us all. When you come to where the zipper pull is, you can leave your needle in, raise your foot, and pull the zipper pull out of the way so that your foot doesn't have to kind of move at all to go round that zipper foot. If you've got a narrow foot like mine, you sometimes don't need that, but a lot of machines don't have a particularly narrow foot, they have quite a wide one, so and I'm stitching around this zipper aperture an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. So I'm coming to the end, pivot, coming up over those zipper teeth. Now with a nylon zipper, your needle should slip straight through between those teeth if you go nice and slowly. Need an extra stitch. I've not gone quite far enough. That's better. And then once you've done that, you can come back along the top of the zipper. Again, an 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm just going to move my zipper pull out of the way so that I can get to this nice end. Just going to hand crank down over that zipper. What you want to do is try and end your stitching in the same hole as you started your stitching. Pull your work out, trim off, and then you're just going to use your got a little loop there. That's obviously something from the back has looped. That's it. And just take the threads from the front. Missed one. Through to the back. And you can tie them off. trim those down. And there we have our zipper beautifully fitted. Everything looks fine. So I'm just going to turn that over. As you can see, we have zipper extending out here and we still have the lining above. So I'm just going to pull the lining down over the one that's already there. And I hope you're not thinking I've actually cut these too long, because they do appear to be they're 6 inches long. So I'm actually going to trim a little bit extra off because these are too long. Clearly I wasn't measuring when I wasn't looking when I cut them. As I'm looking at them now, I realise that they are too long because they're almost hitting the bottom of my lining panel. So I'm going to, once you've trimmed off, you'll have two, there'll be one will be longer than the other, so you need to trim the longer one to the length of the shorter one. If you measure your lining panels properly, then you shouldn't have an issue. Don't be like Christine and just whack a guess. So let's just make that little 1/4 inch hem on the bottom of both sides of our lining panels. And I don't measure this, I do it by eye. I just fold it and press it, so that's what I'm doing. And just do the second one. You just need them to both be pretty much the same length. And all this does is ease the business of closing it up once you've done your turning through. So it just makes for a nice tidy finish at the bottom of your zipper pocket. So there we go. I'm just going to change back to my ordinary foot. She says, oh, I am so disorganised today. There we go. When I say ordinary foot, I mean Teflon foot, because I tend to use this for everything. So I'm going to turn my lining panel so that the zipper's facing upwards. I'm going to pull away the side, making sure that those folds stay in place. I'm going to stitch down the side of my facing and down the side of my zipper using approximately a 1/4 inch seam allowance. What I'm going to try and do though is make sure that the two folds that I made at the bottom stay folded as I go over them. It's really easy to catch them on the end of your zipper foot, of your stitching foot, and you just find that they open up without you even realising. So just that's one. I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side. I'm stitching from the bottom rather than from the top of the pocket linings. Just a back stitch at the bottom there. And you can trim off any excess zipper that you might have. If you, like me, use a longer zipper, you can just trim that off now because you don't need it. That also gets rid of the little metal bits from your zipper. So there we have our zipper pocket is all made. We have no exposed tape inside, so we have a nice tidy zipper and a hole in the bottom. So that's our zipper pocket done. I'll be back to show you the slip pocket.